Right, good evening everyone, and welcome back to another Fans React Friday. Tonight you've got myself, we've got Alex, and we will be joined shortly by Gary from a car park in an unknown location. How are you doing tonight, Alex, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right, pal. Yeah, good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad. Just, having a wonderful time supporting Sunderland and always eager to chat about the lads. It's been a good evening to everyone in the chat as well. It's been a relatively calm week, I think, as Sunderland goes at the minute. On paper, quite a comfortable 2-0 win at the weekend.
Yeah.
Not quite so comfortable on grass, I don't think.
No.
And relatively little noise coming out about the ownership structure of the club and any behind the scenes goings on. So, yeah, not too much to get outraged about tonight. But what have you made of the past 7 days of Sunderland supporting? How have you found it?
No, good. Yeah, good. I mean, when we're doing all right on the grass, I mean, it tends to, if we're doing all right on the pitch, then the ownership and stuff, it goes quiet, doesn't it? I think that's naturalized, if you like, by bad results. We look deeper into things and really analyze what is wrong. Whereas if we're doing all right on the pitch, it kind of masks that a little bit, albeit temporary. Yeah. But no, it's always good to see us win, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, if you get 3 points at the weekend or in the midweek, everything all of a sudden looks a little bit rosier, doesn't it? It's a lot easier to overlook, whatever might be rumbling along in the background. So, like we said, 3 points at the weekend, 2-0 win against Crewe. Two rather late goals to clinch the points. What did you make of the performance? Were you happy? Were you disappointed? What do you think? Of Alex Neil's decision making. Tell us what you think.
I think it was certainly frustrating. I think over the course of the match. But that with that being said, and yes, we did have to be patient. However, it's the business end of the season, and you've just got to find a way to win. That's what Alex Neil has ultimately been brought in to do. Yes, Lee Johnson's style of football was probably a bit more pleasing on the eye. But Alex Neil, he's come in, like we said last week, he's pragmatic. He takes that practical approach, and yeah, I mean, he's made substitutes again that have come on and changed the game, and ultimately led us to get 3 points. So I mean, if a rubbish performance over the course of 90 minutes is going to bring us 3 points, then I'll take it if it gets us into the playoffs. You know what I mean? I mean, the thing is, Jonny, I mean, if you play brilliant over 90 minutes and score 2 goals, you get 3 points. If you play rubbish over 90 minutes and score 2 goals, you get 3 points. So, at this stage of the season, winning is what matters. And yeah, things are looking all right, and long may it continue with another 3 points tomorrow.
Yeah, totally agree. Like you say, business end of the season, every point counts. Doesn't matter how you get them. There's no pictures on the scorecard, as they say. Just the raw numbers. And you alluded to the fact, obviously, that it is getting a bit tight, a bit squeaky bum time. I've just see Gary popping in at the bottom, so I'm just going to add him to the stream once he gets his camera sorted out. Right. Hello, Gary.
Hey guys, am I on?
Yes, and we can hear you, which is a first.
Evening, Gary.
Some would say better not hearing me or seeing me, but that's just the life.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad.
Sorry, I'm a bit late. This dogging's getting even more popular. These part-timers who turn up just when the weather gets better,
Yeah, we had a few comments a bit suspicious of your whereabouts tonight. I see Ben's just commented there, dog and I say Gary. Yep.
All I'll say, lads, is don't knock it till you've tried it.
I can see we've got Acacia in, we've got Lauren in, we've got Christopher in, DJ Sizzler Watson. Good evening to everyone who's joined in the live chat. So I'll come to you straight away then, Gary. We're just chatting about the game at the weekend. Obviously, the 2-0 win against Crewe. A little
Yeah.
bit scrappy, perhaps, but we got the 3 points. What did you make of the game and the decision-making of the manager and all of the, lovely analysis that goes with it?
I've said this a few times recently, but there's a point at which I'm sat watching it and I'm thinking, this is the worst we've ever been. And I know that sounds a bit, as a Sunderland fan, you kind of get used to it. It sounds a bit dramatic, but we're playing Crewe, we're bottom of League One. We've got talent on the pitch, and yet we've got Bailey Wright at the back, who's never been, the best of passers, and he's got no choices. So he's just lumping it long for Ross Stewart, and I thought at times we were awful, and I was starting to get really frustrated with Alex Neil for not giving them more. I don't know, giving the players more ownership, asking them to take more control of the ball, because nobody looked interested at that point. But to be fair to the bloke, his substitutions for the second game running did make a difference. Dan Neil sparked it for me. Just the ability of the lad to look in front of him and move into space and be quick on the ball, quick at controlling it, quick at pushing it forward. Immediately got Crewe on the back foot, and to me that was the catalyst once Dan Neil came on. And the second goal from Roberts, aided by Clark, I thought was a great goal as well. So we finished on a high, but the first 80 minutes to me were poor. And obviously hoping that Neil does something about that and starts to imprint his style and his methods on the team. But I'm hoping it's going to be better than what we saw for long periods.
Yeah, exactly. It would be nice, wouldn't it, to start enjoying the football as well as enjoying the results at the end of the 90 minutes. Yeah. You touched on style of player there. I think it's worth having a little chat about. What we talked about a little bit in the Fans React WhatsApp group about what is the style, what's happening behind the scenes. It's kind of been well spoken about that with Speakman, and his footballing team in place behind the scenes. We should, in theory, have a bit more of a cohesive style at the club, a sort of, I hate to use the buzzwords, ethos, philosophy, whatever you want to call it. But arguably doesn't really seem like that's been implemented successfully. Alex, I'll come to you first. What's your take on it? Do you put much stock in that at all? Do you think it's important, or do you think it's something that's not really so important as long as the manager's got the right vision?
No, I certainly think it's important. I think for the club to have an identity, really, and when Kirill Louis-Dreyfus came in, he spoke about how he wanted, the club from academy level playing the same way right the way through to the first team, and I do think that is important. However, what also is important is that we've been in League One far too long, and playing pretty tippy-tappy football is great 70% of the time, but that other 30% where you're not picking up results is the difference. And we just need to find a way to win, and whether that is smashing the ball forward, hoping that it lands on Ross Stewart's head and one of the tricky wingers that we've got follows through with the ball and we score a goal. At this stage, I think that is ultimately what matters, isn't it? I think we need to get out of this league. And once we're in a higher division, and we can look at stabilizing ourselves in the Championship for a few years before hopefully trying to push to compete at the top end to get back into the Premier League. That's when the other stuff can count. I think right now we just need what we have, really, a pragmatic manager who's practical, very very black and white, and will find a way to win us a game. Yes, it isn't pretty, but I think like I've just said, I think we've languished in League One for far too long, and we need to get out. And hopefully Alex Neil can can find the solution to that and get us into the Championship. However, what I will say is, Christian Speakman spoke about how they're constantly tracking head coaches in the same way they would track players, whereby, if there was someone available who was ultimately better, they would look at it. And I think, the model that they brought to the club, the head coach, sporting director model, where they spoke of the head coach being, replaceable, if you will. When you look at styles of play from Lee Johnson to Alex Neil, it's kind of one end of the spectrum to the other, which is why I've been very vocal about it, which is why I think Alex Neil isn't their long-term vision. I think Alex Neil was brought in to get us up this season. Personally, if that doesn't happen, I think the club will want a fresh approach and start again. And I don't think Alex Neil will want a full crack at it, to be honest, in League One. I think when we look at his first interview, he mentioned that he had to think long and hard whether to take a job in League One. I know he was out of a job; he wasn't employed, so beggars can't be choosers in that sense. However, I think he is a Championship level manager. I've spoken to some people who've said that he might see Sunderland as a good opportunity. He's still a young manager. He's 40. He might see it as a good opportunity with a club full of potential, which I agree to some extent if he can get it right. However, we've also seen that, we've had a long list of managers over the years and no one's been able to do that. So he might think, well, if I can't get them up this season, do I want to, risk my reputation? Because I know I can manage in the Championship and do it well, because he had Preston competing in the top end of the Championship, top half of the Championship, sorry. And yeah, I think the club need to, I do think they'll reassess which way they want to go. Do they offer Alex Neil, should they not go up through the playoffs, do they offer Alex Neil a season to bring that pragmatic approach to a squad of his own, bring in his own players and just try and drag us out of League One? Or do they go down a different route where they bring in somebody who matches that sort of high press, play out from the back football that they seem to crave? Which I think it'll be the latter. I think we'll see another managerial change, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think it is a good point, like you say, that bringing Alex Neil in, we could all clearly see that he's not cut from the same managerial cloth, template wise as Lee Johnson is. He's not. You wouldn't compare them as like for like appointments, would you? So it smacked a bit of short termism at the time, which, like you said, we need to get out of the division. But then it does leave us a bit in the lurch in the summer, depending on whether we do go up or not, which obviously remains to be seen. Gary, now that he's got his spotlight back on, I'll throw that one round to you then, Gary. What's your take on the model that we seem to be trying to employ behind the scenes?
I've got to say, despite him winding me up this afternoon, for which I won't forgive him, Alex, I think you were absolutely spot on then, what you were saying. I won't share with our viewers what you suggested this afternoon, but enough to annoy me, and I'm desperately checking my phone to see if there's any truth in it. So thanks for that. So yeah, I think he's absolutely spot on. I think Alex Neil has been given this remit of just get us up, just get us promoted, and we'll worry about the rest later. I presume it's financially lucrative for him. Presume if it doesn't happen, he gets to say, well, Sunderland's always been a bit of a basket case, and what can I do in 3 months? If he does do it, then it looks good on the CV, regardless of whether he stays or not. I've come round to that mindset that Alex Neil is just a short-term thing. Having said that, and I made a similar suggestion, I think, on our WhatsApp group, is that with the best will in the world, is footballers like stability, they like familiarity, they like to know what's expected of them, sometimes giving them simple tasks. If you watch documentaries over the years of footballers, in changing rooms or on the bench when they might do whatever.
That's the one.
It doesn't take much to confuse them. And so, keep it simple is my view. When we've gone from one playing style, which Johnson had spent at least 6 months working on with the new squad, and then we've kind of thrown that out and asked them to play a completely different way. And I think it's unfair on the players, actually. Yes, there's natural talent in the team, but, you won't really see the best of the players until they're confident in the playing style, confident in the manager, and confident what's expected of them and the team around them. So, look, I'll take short-term decision making if it gets us where we need to be, but particularly in home matches where there's a bit more expectation. I think I'm not quite sure Alex Neil yet knows what he wants to get out of the group, and he runs the risk of losing the fans if we're not playing good football and we're not winning games. And we came damn close to that happening in the last 2 games. So I'm not knocking the results. Results brilliant. Results should then bring confidence. But yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about what I'm seeing, and I'm almost thinking, how much of what we achieved till January that I personally put down to our playing style and what Speakman had brought to the club. How much of that was actually Johnson, and we've taken Johnson away, and we've taken our better players, well, not better players, but our better performances away at the same time. So on that basis, Speakman at the moment, the jury's out for me. Because as everything Alex just said, the long-term plan, the vision he has, the strategy, all those buzzwords, I absolutely agree with everything he said. But if he's dropped all that as quickly as he has, then it doesn't really display a man who's committed to it, and that worries me. That kind of inconsistency, because to me, it's just not good leadership.
Yeah, I think it's like both of you have said. It is a bit worrying the speed at which it's been dropped. It's all well and good saying we have short-term goals we need to achieve, but the whole point of bringing a long-term plan in is to stick to a long-term plan for the long term, not to chop and change. That's sort of the whole point. So, and as well, Gary, it's all well and good scraping wins, but if the performances don't improve and you stop scraping the wins, the tide can turn very, very quickly, which, we have seen under previous managers at certain times. I can see that we do have Matthew lead, and we've got Dom, who've both joined.
And we're in the same car. Come on!
Gary, are they parked around the corner from you there, or what's going on?
I told you how popular it would become when the weather got better.
These fair weather boys, eh?
Absolutely, yeah. That's all it takes.
I'm next to the stadium. We've just played some football, and I just thought I'd show my face because I wasn't going to be rude, but
yeah. Well, we had some people asking after you. Where's Matthew lead? They miss you taking the lead. That's what it is.
I think they prefer you, Jonny, taking the lead than me.
Well, it's nice to see you lads tonight. Anyway, nice little surprise flying visit.
Well, yes, we've just played a very difficult five-a-side game. First time in quite a while, actually. So, I got quite a lot of kicks and a lot of bruises. So,
dragging us to the floor. It's fine.
Come on, what was the score? Get to the point.
We didn't really keep count, but Sean played as well. No.
Yeah. You had Penny on the other side.
Hey, shut up. Listen, me and Sean on the same team, and we're pretty sure that we completely dominated the game. So, yes, I'll take a victory on that if we are going to get a victory.
More like Corey Evans in midfield.
Can I be honest? That sounds like one of Michael Dodds' interviews. Just dodging the question. He still didn't tell us the score.
Very politician-esque, that, wasn't it? Yeah. What was the score? Well, we were sort of on the same team. We didn't really keep score.
I feel really, really sorry for the boys. Really, That's what.
Oh, so you got pumped 6-0. That makes sense, right? Fair enough.
Well, no. We didn't. It was but it was. In all honesty, it was a really good game, and Yeah, so that's why I'm not on the stream this evening. And I've got to drive these lads home. So, but yeah, I just wanted to come on and say hello. So hello.
And I'm sure everyone in the chat and everyone watching at home is very grateful to have seen your face, even if it's just for a few minutes tonight, lads.
Yes. Well, I won't go any longer, and I'll jump off and let you talk all things serious to do with Sunderland. So I'm going to say 2-1 win for Sunderland tomorrow.
Love the optimism. Love it.
Brilliant. All right then, lads. Well, I'll see you in a bit.
Right. Catch you later, fellas.
See you in a bit, mate. Bye.
Ta-da.
I'm still here though. Hello, boys.
No,
I'll let you score. Enjoy it. Keep up the good work, boys. See you later.
See you, Dan.
Right. Well, a lovely little interlude there. Getting back to the slightly more serious business of talking about this basket case club. Like we mentioned before, we've got a comment from DJ Sizzler Watson, which echoes similar things to what both of you have said at points tonight, actually. Like Gary said, he's saying, you know, compared to LJ, the football's definitely worse under Neil in terms of, you know, the aesthetics of watching us. But as a lot of people in the chat have said, actually, a few times, everyone seems to be quite impressed with the substitutions that Alex Neil makes. Like you said, Gary, Dan Neil changed the game. Alex, I think you mentioned it earlier as well about, you know, Neil being a bit more pragmatic at times, which is something that a lot of people, myself included, gave Johnson a lot of stick for at times, you know, an inability to kind of see the immediate situation for what it is and just make decisions on a sort of, you know, horses for courses basis almost. Yeah, I think I can't find the comments now from earlier on, but there were a few people echoing similar things. So, you know, seems to be a fairly unified stance on the manager for a change. You know, I know it's early days, but yeah, Alex Neil, I think I'd agree with the sentiment as well that he I like his pragmatism and I like his substitutions. It's nice to see a manager, you know, having a bit more of a go at times and not afraid to make those changes where other managers have been happy to just sit and see things play out. Just moving back quickly to talk about, you know, a couple of more behind the scenes things. There was the supporters meeting this week, wasn't there? In Sunderland, which our own Matthew Lead managed to turn up 5 minutes late for and not get let into.
I wouldn't let him in either.
Thomas was there, so next time he's on the show, you know, we'll have a chance to listen to what he thought about the experience. But I just wondered if either of you two had any thoughts, anything you wanted to share on how you're feeling about the situation regarding the transparency or lack of transparency with the between the club and the fans at the minute, and, you know, sort of what the situation is with that relationship between club and fans after some of the, you know, the fallout, we could say, of the past few weeks. Alex, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, what I will say is I think what we've seen today in terms of the season ticket renewal info has really shown the importance of fan groups. I think a couple of weeks ago, it could have been in the last week actually, where the fan group had met up with Kira Louis Dreyfus directly, and they'd put to him the survey where they found that 5,000 to 10,000 fans weren't up for renewing, and they put to him, you know, everything's going up, energy prices, everything. So fans may think that, you know, we've been down here for long enough, that 300-400 quid could go to something more, not necessarily important, but something more as a necessity opposed to a hobby. And I think from what we're seeing today, where, you know, there's been a reduction on season ticket prices, albeit by a small amount, I think that has shown that, you know, the importance of the fan groups and, you know, the voice that the supporters do have. And I think as well, you know, credit has to go to Kira Louis Dreyfus. Of course,
Yeah, and it's nice to see you living up to your happy clapper reputation of it as well, Alex. You know, looking at the positives. Always focusing.
Harry knew today, so
yeah, exactly. You know, a man of his word, practices what he preaches. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, it is nice to see the club taking on board feedback and making what I think we'd all agree is the correct decision. In, you know, sort of accommodating those fan demands a little bit. Because, like you say, you know, at the end of the day, everything, you know, the costs of everything are rising. Supporting a football club and having tickets and, you know, buying merch and going to games and drinking with your mates, it is all a luxury at the end of the day. It's not a necessity, like you said, as important as it is to, you know, a great many of us. So it is nice to see the club, you know, acting in the fans' interests for a change, unlike a lot of clubs and a lot of owners that we do see across the Football League. Gary, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the goings on behind the scenes and the little bits of information we do get trickling out?
I've got to be honest, I've not followed it in terms of reading the minutes of some of these meetings, because I tend to think that they're so diluted and watered down. You're not really getting a full flavour anyway of what's going on. And, you know, sometimes meetings just achieve nothing apart from, nothing apart, because now you've got to come to some kind of agreement, and ultimately, you know, the fans haven't got the power to make changes. So yeah, the club might use it as a bit of a sounding board, but does it really change policy? I don't know. Maybe it has made them rethink in terms of pricing, or it might be that they were never intending on putting the prices up, but by putting the rumour out and then pulling it back, it looks like a concession. That's me being cynical, but, you know, we wouldn't be the first club to pull strokes like that. I think there's one, if you like, elephant in the room here, and it's Madrox, isn't it? You just need to get them out, and that's all I'm interested in reading, if I'm being honest. And I'm by no means, you know, one of the people who froth at the mouth every time Donald and Methven are mentioned. But it's clearly it's become like a bad stench. It's hung around too long. It needs fixing. We need to know who's in charge, who's making the decisions. The whole Roy Keane thing was a complete debacle. You've got to put some of that down to indecision, or maybe even infighting in the background. I just want to know that Kirill Louis-Dreyfus is the majority shareholder. He's in charge. We know who's behind, who's supporting him, and then they get on with it. I don't like the uncertainty that, you know, maybe there are people hanging around just waiting for a payday, because they haven't got the best. You know, we're talking about long-term planning here and long-term strategies. You don't achieve that when there's people who are in it just hoping that suddenly get promoted, so they get a better dividend on their deal. We need better a better approach to things than that. So I just want that done and dusted. In terms of the relationship with the fans, I think our current pricing shows that we've pretty much got it spot on, because to be getting the crowds we are, despite everything that's going on, suggests that they've got it absolutely on the money, if you'll pardon the pun. So they don't need to make too many changes. Just be mindful. Think about what you're doing. You don't want to sort of lose the fans at this point. You're going to lose a few anyway if we don't go up, and I think that's understandable. Some people will have just had enough, but I think if they pushed the prices up too far, then it would have just been an absolute, shooting themselves in the foot. So I'm glad that hasn't happened. I mean, the examples Alex was talking about then, I do agree that in this day and age, having some kind of membership or loyalty scheme, if you like, where your loyalist supporters can get extra points or discounts, or there's ways of rewarding them and driving a stronger bond with the club, has got to be a good thing. And I'd like to think in the background there's those sorts of conversations going on. It's not like a normal customer relationship with a business. It's different. Most clubs should really be, in this day and age, making the most of that, because you're not going to decide you're not supporting Sunderland one week and then decide you're going to watch Middlesbrough the week after. It doesn't work like that. You're tied to your football club. Your decision is probably, am I going to the game or not, or am I actually still following this club? After 5 years in League One, some will decide they're not. They're completely disenfranchised, and they'll lose interest. And it's not just losing those people; it's maybe losing their kids or their neighbours or anybody else that might drag along with them. And given what's happening up the road, we cannot, as a club, afford to lose another generation like I think we did in the early 90s. So, from a business model point of view, they need to keep the fans on board. And I don't just mean, in the stadium. I mean, getting people turning up. Or just talking about the club like we're doing now. The worst thing you can do to some fans is make them apathetic. And I think we've come pretty close to that on more than one occasion. So hopefully I think Louis Dreyfus has got the right ideas, how quickly he can bring them in. And if he can bring them in without opposition and invest behind the scenes as well as on the pitch, then we've got half a chance. But he's still a young man, he's got a lot to learn, and it's a big job, we know that. So there's a lot to be done in terms of supporters relationships. I think that's fairly evident, and I've just watched to see how it pans out. But as long as those two are in the background, three if you include Sartori, then I think there's always going to be cynicism and there's always going to be a lot of suspicion. And I think that needs cutting off, and cutting off soon as. And once that happens, then we can start talking about some of the peripherals.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Like you said, it is the big elephant in the room. It's what hangs it's the spectre hanging over the club at the minute. And like you say, it does bring a lot of cynicism. I mean, it's in the back of my mind whenever I think about decision making at the club. You always have that little doubt of, well, how much are they involved? Are they having input? Are they not? To what extent are they involved in sort of day-to-day operations? Are they? Do they have Kirill's ear? And those aren't thoughts you want floating around. If you're the club, if you're Kirill, you don't want people questioning what's going on and not feeling like they can trust the club. So the sooner we can, deal with that, the better. Ideally, it would be them leaving, like you've said, but obviously we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. I don't feel like we're likely to get too many clear answers on when or how that might be until the day arrives, unfortunately. Moving on then, unless Alex has anything else to say.
No, mate, you carry on.
We'll move on back to talk about matters on the pitch a little bit more. If we're, we're all in rough agreement, I think, about sort of the style of play, the direction that this team seem to be moving on the pitch. But what do you make of the sort of the makeup of the playing 11 at the minute? We had a little bit of a discussion during the week about not having a settled defence, about personnel we've got in different positions. I think we've all spoken at length during and just after the transfer window about how we're quite top heavy in the squad. But where do you see the team going in the next few weeks? Without asking you to get into predictions of every single game, we've got some difficult games, some on paper slightly easier games coming up, and with the Rotherham game being postponed at the end of the season, you'd like to think that we could try and have our house in order before we get into that real final run-in. Would you like to see changes being made on the pitch, or are you happy with where things are going? Alex, we'll start with you, mate. Nice, easy question. Fix the team.
Well, okay, it might ruffle a few feathers, from what I've seen so far of a certain Mr. Jermaine Defoe, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I'm sorry, but he's finished. He's you know, I know the sort of lumping the ball forward method that we've seen from Bailey Wright specifically over the last couple of games doesn't really fit Jermaine Defoe and how Jermaine Defoe's played over the years. However, we've seen that he can be that lone man. We've seen it under Sam Allardyce with two sort of direct wingers next to him in Wabi Kazri and Barini at the time. God, just even thinking back to that just makes me. But yeah, I think if he pops up and scores the winning goal in the playoff final, then it was a brilliant signing and it was worth it. However, I wouldn't be starting him, in my opinion. I think, like we touched on just before, I don't think Alex Neil has been brought in to kind of solidify a style of play or a philosophy. I think what we will see and what we have seen since Alex Neil came in with 15 games to go, I think what we've seen and we'll continue to see is chop and change. I think everybody counts in at this stage of the season. I think players that haven't featured will need to step up if called upon. And I think everyone's just kind of got to have that mindset of this is it. Like, this is the final push. I'm not too fussed about styles of play and it being pretty on the pitch. I think if we can put out 11 players with the 3 substitutes that we have available that are capable of getting us 3 points, that gets us into the playoffs and hopefully into the championship, we can look at all that in the summer. I think if it's not working, change it. Alex Neil seems to be, ballsy enough to do that, and it's bared fruit when he has done. But I think we just need to pick 11 players who are willing to roll the sleeves up and find a way to win by hook or by crook, whether that's it flying in off Jamie Tete's arse cheeks and we win 1-0. Doesn't for me. As long as we win the game at this stage of the season and where we're at, we just need to win as many games as possible. I think it's difficult. I think what we're seeing against Crewe, yes, us as supporters in the stadium look at it and maybe go, come on, Crewe, these are bottom of the league. Why is it taking us 80 minutes to break them down and score a goal? I paid close attention to their number 9, not necessarily the shirt number 9, but the guy who was playing the 9. And it was a very rare occasion where he came away from the halfway line. I mean, they planted 11 players behind the ball, and I think any team would find it hard to break them down. If it's going to dig the heels in their own half. Yes, there were a couple of occasions where they did, where we were committing a lot of men forward and we're clearly trying to get that winning goal. And on another day, and another team would have put the 2 chances that Crewe got away, and we'd have probably lost. However, I think it's got to be high risk, high reward. We've just got to go for it. It literally is sink or swim. And like I say, as long as we put out 11 players on the pitch with 3 substitutes who are going to come on and change the game as they have done frequently since Alex Neil's been here, that's what matters at this stage, mate, if I'm honest. And can I just say, I like Alex Neil. I think that if Alex Neil was given a full season, I think he probably would get us up. I think because of his sort of no shit mentality, he doesn't speak about pomos and bomb alleys and all of that. It's get the ball and put it in the back of the net. And I think that's what you need in this league. I think, what we heard from Norwich and Preston fans and even Hamilton fans was good stuff. They seemed to, they talked about how he likes to play this high press game. with direct wingers and fast football. And he came in with 15 games to go. He doesn't have a pre-season where he can implement that ideas. I think he's been very vocal where he said, I'm taking it on a game by game basis. He's aware that you come up at the business end of the season, you come across teams that have all got something different to play for. You can come up against teams like Crewe who are fighting for their lives, and every point matters to them. You can come up against teams who are trying to get into the playoffs like we are, or going on to go up automatically. And then you can also find those teams that have nothing to play for and are comfortable in mid-table. The pressure's off them, and then it's all on us, and they find ways through. So yeah, I don't think Alex Neil's really had the time and hasn't really been brought in to sort of put in a style of play as such, and this is how we're going to play every game. I think he looks at the opposition, works out how he can beat them, and tells the lads, right, this is how you're going to beat this team. Not stick to our philosophy. Let's go out on our shields. I think it's right. We're going to win the game by like I said, if it comes off Jamie Tete's batty, then brilliant.
I agree with a lot of what you said there, mate. I think it's worth echoing. The fact that, like you say, Neil is not scared to go direct and take risks. Play the percentages at times, which is what you need to do when you're scrapping for points in any league, in any situation, whether it's trying to qualify for the Champions League or trying to avoid relegation to the conference. If you put the ball in areas where you've got chances of getting shots on goal, then you might score goals, you might win games. I mean, one of the most universally positively viewed Sunderland managers since I've been watching the club has been Sam Allardyce, and that was absolutely him to a T, wasn't it? It doesn't matter how you get the ball there. If you get it up into their box and put it in the net, there goes another one next to your goals column, and you might get some points out of the match. So, yeah, I think it's I certainly, from what I've seen of Alex Neil's team so far, which hasn't been as much as I would like, but from what I have seen, I'm definitely a fan of that sort of approach. I think there's a time and a place for Lee Johnson style football. Don't get us wrong. It was great to watch when it worked. But there is absolutely also a place for a scrap at times. And I think that's definitely what Neil brings, if nothing else. And like you say as well, he's got a good track record. His former fan bases speak highly of him. So there's clearly a good manager in there. And he's only just got his feet under the table, really. So fingers crossed we see the team, only improving over the next few weeks. Gary, I'll come to you. Same question as to Alex. What's your take on the situation on the pitch at the minute?
First of all, I think you've both spoken, shall I say, with great eloquence about Alex Neil. And I know I genuinely mean that because I'm a bit unsure about him. And it's, I don't want to... I'd kind of had enough of Johnson. I was losing patience with him. So I feel, a little bit like Alex Neil wasn't really what I was expecting. So I'm a bit on the fence with Neil as I am about Speakman, really. But no, you've both come up with some really, really fair points there about, his pragmatic approach and the changes he's made and also his no-nonsense attitude. In the past, as a club, we have benefited where we've had that kind of manager and that kind of mentality brought in right across the club. So I think you both make some really good points about him. I think the main thing for me about the team when it gets announced tomorrow is he can't risk a back three away from home. Playing Bailey Wright with Winchester and Sirkin either side. You can't do that tomorrow. I think that would be absolute crazy. It's one thing when we're keeping possession, but as Alex was talking about the Crewe striker last week, whose name escapes me, if he'd had anything about him really, if he was an out-and-out forward, he would have scored one of those chances he had. He had a good one the first half, two decent ones second half. I don't think we can afford to do that. I think we need to go back to a back four. Whether that means Doyle coming in, I don't know. I don't know what's happened to Arby because he wasn't even on the bench last week. I suspect he'll go for more of a 4-3-3. Maybe he'll change it in the middle of the game as he has done before. I think Dan Neil's got to start. I am biased. He's a bit of a favourite of mine. I think the only danger might be playing Neil and Matete next to each other. Whether they're both very young, whether they've got the discipline to cover the defence.
Yeah.
This is not me, saying Corey Evans should stay in the team, because I think we're all frustrated with Corey Evans and his, the fact he will hide in matches. Maybe it's 09, Matete and Neil in midfield. I mean, that would give us a lot of presence and a lot of running, wouldn't it? So, Roberts, I want to see more of. Maybe he's playing Roberts off Stewart. I think Jack Clark should go over onto the right. He looks completely wrong playing on the left. He's always wanted to cut inside. And while, sometimes that works, and, we've had Aidan McGeady, who's the absolute master of it, I don't think Jack Clark looks comfortable there. I think we need to switch him if he's starting. And I think in terms of Defoe, again, I completely agree with everything Alex has said. I don't think he's finished, by the way. I think he's got too much about him. And I think he will still come in use before the end of the season. But I don't think he should be starting. I think he's a player to bring off the bench when teams are tiring. And maybe he's way tiring and we need to go for long balls if we're chasing the game. But I don't think he should be starting. I think it's got to be Stewart, and then, maybe it's Roberts and Clark playing off him, whilst Pritchard's out at least. So I've got more questions than answers, really.
Yeah, what were we saying there, Alex, mate?
It's saying about Pritchard. He's gone to Middlesbrough,
I'll be Gary checking his phone in the panic for the next half an hour.
Funny.
Right. I think, to be honest, Gary, I cannot argue with anything you've said. I totally agree regarding the potential makeup in the midfield and the front three. I'd quite like to see O'Neill, Matete and Neil as a midfield three with Roberts, Clark and Stewart ahead of them. I think that would be a nice solid foundation in the middle of the park to hopefully retain some possession of the ball. Because like you say, away from home, if we went with a back three with one recognised centre-half in it, I think we'd just get aerially bombarded into submission. So, I wouldn't like to be the man picking that back four, because as we've spoke about before, we are like there and we don't have the cover and we don't have the options that some of the teams in this league do. But yeah, I'd like to see that six with the midfield three and the front three that you've mentioned. On the subject of O'Neill, we spoke about possible captaincy options the last show I was on. DJ Sizzler Watson has asked, do you think O'Neill should be made captain? So I think, Alex, I think you were on the same show where we talked about the captaincy, weren't you? Yeah, where you talked about Corey Evans buffering, which was a personal highlight from that show. But I think we had a couple of people in favour of O'Neill as captain, and I'm unashamedly one of those. Fully paid up member of the Luke O'Neill fan club. Gary, what's your take on the captaincy? Because, we've mentioned Corey Evans briefly. Obviously hasn't been setting the world alight. He is, the club captain at the minute. He's the man with the armband and the responsibility. Would you like to see a change? And if you would like to see a change, who would you want?
To me, Bailey Wright is a captain, but the other player, when he comes back, who I think is more of a leader on the pitch, would be Pritchard. I would like, I'd be quite happy. Of course, provided he doesn't go to Middlesbrough, Alex.
Already gone.
He's gone already. Right, okay. Well, if we can get him back, then I would have him as a captain. I mean, one of the things, just going back to talking about the teams then, I could get quite excited about a team including, Clark running down one side and Matete and Neil in the middle. What we do have to be careful of is the edge of these players.
Yeah.
Because actually, I did a bit of a check the other day. I didn't realise quite how young some of them are. Matete, I didn't realise is only 21. I think Clark's only 21, maybe he's 22 now. We've still got a really, really young squad. And I think it's one of the disappointments with people like Evans and Bath when he played is, you were looking for more from them as the more mature players in the team. Winchester the same. I think Winchester's 27, 28. He's not a kid. And don't get me started on Gooch. These are players who are supposedly in the prime of their career, and you kind of want to see them helping the youngsters along. And we need to get that blend right. I think we start with too many youngsters, then we're always running risk that their naivety on the pitch might count against us. So we need to get that right. But yeah, clearly the club captain is very, very important to me at the moment. There's only one man for the job, and that's Bailey Wright. I can't see beyond him, and I certainly don't see Evans as being is in our best first 11 at the moment. What I would say about Evans, I thought he started the season off okay, and he does do a lot of defensive work. And he did it against Crewe, actually. Quite often dropped in when he needed to, particularly around set pieces. But he just doesn't take enough ownership on the pitch. He reminds me of a lot of players we've had over the years, where you'd almost forget they're there. I don't think he's a step up, for instance, from Josh Scowen.
No.
I would probably put Scowen ahead of him. And he reminds me a little bit of can't remember his name. The one, Bridcut. I thought Bridcut, who got pelters at Sunderland. I don't think he's any better than Liam Bridcut, and he might be playing for the opposition tomorrow. So,
so he's nailed on the score then.
Oh yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned that. I should have attempted. Maguire's not scored since he scored 3 against us, so he's waiting in the wings as well, isn't he? So,
for God's sake, we know what's coming tomorrow, then, don't we, lads?
And if I'm winding you up, the other player they've got, which I've forgotten about, is the big lad with the ponytail up front, Marquis. They've taken back from Portsmouth, haven't they?
Yeah.
Marquis, and I've got a friend who's a Pompey fan. Useless until he plays Sunderland. He had his best 2 games for Portsmouth against Sunderland, apparently, and so he's lying in wait as well. And I probably fear him more than I do Maguire.
Yeah, it's very, very, very typical Sunderland, isn't it, to let ex-players and to get one over on us. And Marquis, obviously being a Portsmouth player, they certainly had a bit of a hoodoo over us for a while, didn't they? So wasn't a surprise to see him having his only good games against us.
Yeah.
Always prepared for disappointment as a Sunderland fan. But I thought Pritchard was an interesting shout as a captain, actually, because it kind of goes against all the conventional wisdom in picking a captain. Bailey Wright is the one that makes sense. He's been here, longer than a lot of the players. Plays centre half. Traditionally, you'd have centre half or a centre midfielder maybe as your captain. You wouldn't go for an attacking player who's not been here that long. I think my only worry with picking a player like that, or any sort of attacking player as captaincy, certainly as club captain, is just the fact that it's so prone to rotation. At any given moment, you could swap the style and you go from 3 attacking midfielders to 2, or somebody drops out and somebody comes off the bench. And you just need that. I think you need that stability. In an ideal world, I don't think we have anyone who's the ideal captain at the minute, but you want somebody who's guaranteed to be on the team sheet, which is it's similar to what you see with the England cricket team at the minute, where Joe Root retains the captaincy only because he's the only one who's nailed on to get in the side. Yeah. Which I think, there's shades of that in our squad at the minute, where there isn't really anyone for the job who you'd pick if you had the choice between a better pool of candidates. We've only got
Jonny,
a few
I'm
minutes
just going to
left.
drop off a second. I'm just moving my car. I'll be back with you in a minute.
All right. Some fair weather friends have come to join them, I reckon. So we've only got a few minutes left. So while we're waiting for Gary to come back, Alex, what do you think about tomorrow's game? How are you feeling? What do you see happening? Are you confident or are you a bit more pessimistic?
I don't know, really, mate. I think from what we've seen, Alex Neil certainly showed us up a little bit at the back, keeping a lot more clean sheets. And I think from that, if you keep a clean sheet, you don't lose the game, and you only need one chance if you keep a clean sheet and you win. And like we've touched on, we've got a lot of quality going forward. I think if we can, keep ourselves tight at the back and we take that chance, because we're bound to have them. We take a chance. I can see us getting a result. It was a funny one, really, with Chris Maguire, because just touching on what Gary said, he hasn't scored since that hat-trick against us. He's actually only scored 4 all season, and 3 of them came against us. So we'll see. I fancy us tomorrow. And, Liam Bridcott, I know you said there he's nailed on to score. Has he ever scored a goal in his life? I mean, I remember
maybe he's in training.
when we signed him from Brighton under Poyet. I remember it was deadline day, and he signed, and the next day, it was the 1st of February. He was thrown straight in at St James's Park in the yellow kit. We won 3-0, and he was like Cambiasso. He was brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And then, I think it was one of those where obviously Sunderland comes with a lot of expectation, and he perhaps just didn't have the mentality to deal with that. But it is funny when Gus Poyet says that he would have signed Will Buckley and Liam Bridcott if he was manager of Real Madrid.
I knew you were gonna roll that quote out. That's just shivers down your spine material. That
it is, yeah. But no, to answer your question, mate. I'm confident. I think we'll pick up a result tomorrow. And if I'm honest, I would take a draw. I think every point matters. I think Lincoln need points as well. So a point away from home is never really a bad result. I think we're on a, I think we probably need 4 wins and 2 draws in order to get playoffs. So yeah, I think if we don't lose obviously I want us to win. So yeah, I think Alex Neil's made us harder to beat. We only need that one chance, and I think we'll take it tomorrow.
I hope you're right, mate. Fingers crossed. I think I'd probably agree. Quietly confident, but perhaps slightly more in hope than in real expectation. But if he does keep us solid, keep us tight, hard to beat, that is usually a good formula for being a successful team away from home. And like you say, at the end of the day, if we do take a point, it ain't a bad result. Point away from home against a relatively decent side. They're not absolute bottom feeders, are they? They're not some of the teams we've seen. So yeah, I'd take a point, but I'd quite like a win. I think we'll scrape it. Gary, final action of the night. What are you saying about tomorrow's game? What do you think's going to happen?
I've kind of got a sneaking suspicion that we'll turn Lincoln over just because of what they did to us at the stadium. I think we kind of owe them, and I think some of our players will think we owe them because we're a better team than they are, and we let them have the run of things at the stadium. Certainly in the second half. I kind of got a feeling that we maybe due a tight 1-0 win. So maybe we get that tomorrow. In terms of getting a draw, I am a bit nervous about what's going on around us. I think Milton Keynes Dons are certainties for the playoffs. Plymouth are in good form. Kind of Wickham, you think that Ainsworth will have them there or thereabouts. I'm just a bit nervous that we might yet miss out on the playoffs. And particularly with Oxford and Plymouth yet games still to come. I'd take a draw, but we desperately need 3 points for me. And if that's a scrappy 1-0, so be it. I'll take it. Sneaking suspicion we'll win, but I don't think there'll be a lot in it. And I've always rated Appleton as a manager. I think he's quite a wily old bird, and I think he'll match Neil in terms of making changes during the game and formations. So I think we need to be clever, retain possession, make them frustrated like they did to us. And if we sneak a goal, Ross Stewart goal or a penalty or whatever, then I'll be as happy as anybody. I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, gentlemen. And it's been nice to see all the names in the live chat as well. I think that's going to be us for the night. Only a couple of minutes after 8.
Ben? Have we heard from Ben?
Ben commented in the chat a couple of times earlier, so we know that he is definitely still alive.
He's got the lurgy, hasn't he?
Yeah, Alex has had the lurgy last week as well, so fingers crossed me and you stay safe, eh, Gary?
Can I just around StreamYard, is it? There's a conspiracy.
Alex, mate, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, you've got Chris Maguire scoring tomorrow on my mind now.
I think we know what Alex is going to be dreaming about when he gets to kick the night, eh?
Hopefully he's feeling unwell, and hopefully his next shit's a cactus.
And on that bombshell, we've had a £9 donation from EXO in the chat, just simply captioned FTM. I couldn't think of any better pair of statements to end the show on. Chris Maguire shitting out a cactus and FTM. So it's been a pleasure, lads.
I agree with that.
It's been a pleasure, lads. A great show. Nice to have you on, and nice to see
catch
everyone.
up with you, lads.
All right. Until next time, good night, everyone.
Bye.
See you, chaps.